This is the second video tutorial for the Finding the Missing Millions handbook. The handbook was co-produced by Resources for Development Consulting and Global Witness. The handbook shows you how to use data on oil, gas and mining projects to hold governments and companies to account for important revenues from the extractive industries, such as taxes and royalties. The handbook includes 10 different methods for using extractives data. In this video, we're going to look at one of these methods: how to check whether royalties paid by extractive companies are the correct amount. We're going to use an example of a gold mining company called Avocet and its operations in Burkina Faso. Note that this test can also be used on oil and gas projects. This test can help you find out if a company may have underpaid royalties. It's important to know, however, that on its own, this test will not be able to prove that a government has lost revenues. If your test indicates there may have been government losses, further inquiries will be needed to verify this. In order to carry out the test, you will need an internet connection and web browser and a spreadsheet program to do the calculations required. Royalties are often the easiest type of government revenue to analyse. This is because in many countries, the amount in royalties paid by a company is simply a percentage of the value of the commodity produced from a project. These are known as value-based royalties. It's important to note, however, that in some countries, royalties are based on the profits made by a company, not on the value of production. Also, sometimes costs such as transportation and processing are deducted from the value of production before the royalty payment is calculated. This is why it's important to try and identify the fiscal terms that apply to the project, which will include this information. We're going to perform our royalty test on Avocet's Inata gold mine in Burkina Faso. To carry out this test, we need to have 4 pieces of information: what the royalty rate for the project is, what the value of production from the project is, how much we would expect the company to have paid in royalties, and how much the company actually paid in royalties. First, we need to confirm that the royalty regime in Burkina Faso is based on the value of production, and to identify what the royalty rate is. We found this information by doing a word search for royalty in Avocet's annual report for 2015. In a footnote on page 20, we can see that Avocet have given the royalty rates in Burkina Faso for gold. The royalty rate in this instance is 4%, as we know from a Google search that the gold price did not fall below $1,050 per ounce in 2015. Secondly, we need to find out what the value of production was from the Inata mine in 2015. We can see in Avocet's annual report for 2015 that the overall value of gold production in Burkina Faso was $85,038,000. It's also clear from Avocet's annual report that the company only had one mine producing gold in Burkina Faso in 2015, which was the Inata mine. This means we can take the overall gold production figure for Burkina Faso as the value of production for the Inata mine. In many cases, the value of production from a specific project will not be publicly available. However, in these cases, it may be possible to identify the value by multiplying the production volume from a project by the relevant commodity price figure. We are now able to calculate the expected royalty payment from the Inata mine by multiplying the royalty rate by the value of production. This gives us $3,401,000. The final piece of information we need is how much Avocet actually paid in royalties, which is given in the company's Payments to Governments report. A quick internet search for Avocet and Payments to Governments provides the document. We can see that the royalties paid for the Inata Burkina Faso project were $2,094,000. Having populated our spreadsheet with the relevant pieces of information, we are now in a position to compare the expected royalties with what was paid. It's clear there is a substantial shortfall of $1,307,000. In order to establish why this was the case, Global Witness wrote to Avocet to request an explanation. Avocet stated that as of December 2015, it had paid $2 million in royalties, and that the remaining $1.3 million was recorded as a liability and was paid in 2016. It's important to remember that even if your initial analysis shows the payment is lower than expected, this does not prove misconduct, and there may well be a plausible explanation, as is the case in our Avocet example. For example, companies might sell production in 1 year, but delays can mean the royalty payment isn't made until the following year. Also, as mentioned, transport or processing costs may be deducted before the royalty payment is calculated. In these cases, you will need to account for these costs in your analysis. For more information on this test, and for more tutorials on other ways you can use revenue data from extractive projects, go to the Finding the Missing Millions webpage.